Hello, everyone, and apologies to all of the listeners who heard the slight distortion in the intro music there. We're still not quite sure why that happens from time to time, but we apologize. Anyway, I'm Andy in the United Kingdom.
Or maybe that... Can you hear me? Like, I'm having like...
You're incredibly quiet, Scott.
There we go. Okay.
There you are.
It's a little bit of a what's the right word? You know, I'm a bit distracted and frazzled, but I've arrived a little late, but I've made it. And you know what? It is actually a gorgeous day here in late October in Toronto. So good to see you.
Fantastic. Nice to see you too. And everyone who's listening or watching on YouTube or other platforms, this is the TN Timbits podcast, Global Perspectives on Business Development to help you prosper. And this week we are going to be discussing or continuing our theme of content and branding strategies for the month of October. And we're going to be talking about personalization, thinking about things like listening, audience, and data. But before we get into that, Scott, please, do you have a story for us?
It's more of a... Yes, I do. It's a bit of a reflection. So I was, recently at a conference and thought I would just kind of recap some of the takeaways that are sort of appropriate reflections on some of the things that we've been talking about on the podcast the last few episodes, getting ready for trade shows, thinking about audience and all that kind of stuff. And I think it still stands, right? It's to follow that recipe and all the good things. You can go back and listen to it all, but it's the right kind of prep, making sure you actually have an activation plan at the event. You got the right follow-ups organized, and you're really intentional. You're not just showing up, that kind of thing. And so I did all those things. And for some reason, I think maybe it was just the timing. Like, we put this in our own content plan, and then I was doing the things. I'm like, I know how to do this. I'm going to show up, and I'm going to rock it. And I mean, it was a good event. Had some good conversations. It was just funny that, like, I kind of expected there to be a little bit more energy in the room, and I think for some reason it wasn't necessarily because of any lack of prep or structure or presentation for anybody or the event organizers themselves. It was just a consequence of the place we're in sort of the digital economy right now, and we've been talking about some of that and what AI is doing to affect that, and so the enthusiasm that I've seen, particularly this event and others before, just didn't seem to be there, and yet it was still a productive event.
Okay.
But because we got invited to, we were given some new proposal or RFPs, and we were asked to follow up and have some more ongoing conversations and whatnot. But just, I think it's probably obvious, but I'll say it anyway. One of the most useful things that I think kind of got us into some of those conversations was, at the end of the day, just be yourself. Just like the folks, when we were able to get up on stage, or when we were able to talk to somebody who was, some of the best presentations and whatnot were the people who were not as well rehearsed. They were just up there being a bit vulnerable, talking about their own challenges. Slides were a little bit out of order. Whoops, but we're here because that's not the important part. It's the substance of what we're talking about and the situation and whatnot. And so I was down in the US, but I had, one or two people come up to me when they realized I was Canadian. They had one or two people come up to me because, oh yeah, it's good to see you here again, kind of thing. And one firm that is in northern Scotland, again, sort of the just friendly nature is what kind of got us into a conversation. So I don't think that negates all the advice that we've been sharing and the things you need to do. But at the end of the day, it also needs to be, you need to keep it in mind that, like, you're just going there to make sure you can set yourselves up as well as you possibly can to maintain past relationships, make yourself approachable and welcome new ones and see where it goes.
Fantastic, and I think that's a good lesson in all aspects, in meetings, in presentations, in sales calls. Is be genuine, be yourself. That is really important.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean you forget about the professionalism.
Yeah.
But it is important that you remain true to yourself and true to your character.
And I think I've seen the opposite thing happen, where people put on this artificial friendliness and this, like, I've been in meetings where the sales rep starts like icebreaker questions, and I'm like, really? No. Like, let that happen casually and organically and whatnot, because then you're like, ugh, now we're all sort of forced to do this artificial song and dance. So it's got to be honest to goodness, just genuine sort of realism. So
yeah, and I think this story or this reflection feeds quite nicely into today's topic, where we're talking about personalization. And then the subtitle of that you'd written was listening audience data. What was it you had in mind there?
Well, okay. So we've talked this month about sort of mapping the buyer journey and knowing your audience and understanding what resonates. And now we're getting into, I think, sort of the applied tactic that you then deploy with that understanding and strategy laid down. And so when it comes to personalizing your experience, sending out personalized content, this, I think, you're right. Like, the story I just told is a good segue here, because if you're not ready to adjust and adapt what you thought you were going to need to do and what was in your mind academically appropriate to what's actually happening, you're going to get left behind. So listening to your audience react, respond, and how they engage with what you've done to personalize your message, I think, is the important takeaway that I have in mind for this conversation today.
And we're focusing still predominantly on sales, marketing, customer success teams, but I think a lot of this still is kind of relevant in other departments as well. I mean, if you think about finance, if you think about any other parts of the business, HR and so on, that has an external facing element to it. I think this is also very important to take into consideration. I mean, yes, of course, naturally we're going to lead with a more commercial element, because that's the area that we're more expert in. However, I think from an overall business perspective, that personalization is important, but it's also important to maintain those boundaries, because you can get a lot of information now about customers and about people who are interacting with your business and what's going on. And there's a very, very easy way of becoming a bit creepy when you reveal too much information, or that you use that information in the wrong way. And I think that's very important from the sales side of things. You don't just drop an email to someone 15 seconds after they've been on your website, go, I just saw you were on our website and looking at this page. Like, yeah, I know you can do that, but that's a bit weird.
So, side note, like, I've got this scenario right now where there's this prospect that has been all over our website for about 6 weeks. So I know the account name and the organization, and I'm like, wow, this would be like an ideal candidate. Like, I don't know anything about why they're on our website, but every day they're back and they're reading one more article or whatnot. And I'm like, what do I do? Do I creep them and be like, so listen, I can see you're there. Just come on, tell me what you need. Let's get going. But clearly it's working. They're engaging. They're coming back, and you've got to wait until the right moment, or you get the right chance to,
what would be the right moment then? How would you judge what the right moment would be?
Well, so I've been talking about this a lot lately and thinking about this, not just in the context of this scenario, but it's coming up more and more, especially in B2B purchasing processes, that a lot of the times, before you're even in the room, the prospect has done all kinds of research
Mm.
And so they've already sort of laid down their own journey that they're going on, and they've come to understand sort of what you're doing, and they have an idea of where you're going to fit into the solution. And so in this case, knowing the account name, and it's a large like nationwide, and there's replicas of the same organization in every country in the world, kind of a big organization. So I'm like, all right, we're into a not-for-profit healthcare kind of lane. I know what that means. I know that they have to deliver, do some advocacy work, but they also have to get donations, and they also have to show value to corporate sponsors and donors, and they're going to want to nurture a membership and things like that. So without even knowing who it is or what their current need is, it's already started to shape some of the content that we're working on publishing right now, just to continue to sort of feed the narrative. I'm like, well, I know that there's somebody out there consuming this, so let's make sure that they're aware that our presence, our resource, our expertise goes, adequately deep here, if not, deeper than anybody else. So I actually think that when you quote unquote like reach out, now it's in that kind of manner. It's not directly picking up the phone and calling the CMO over there and saying like, listen, come on, let's have a conversation. I can see you sort of orbiting, our content, because they're not ready for that. Otherwise they would have reached out. So in this case, engaging and listening is paying very close attention to exactly what are they looking at, putting some other content out there, seeing if you get a hit, if you get some engagement, making sure you have some modern tools in order to be able to monitor and assess that kind of engagement, and making sure you do a few things to let them know, listen, the door's open, and whenever you're ready to engage, we're here to do that.
Yeah, that was really well surmised, because I think, when I'm thinking about personalization, I think about those three sort of tiers that you just spoke through perfectly. Who is it? What is it that and when should you engage? So typically, what segment, who is it, is
right.
Like which segment, which account, what role do they have? What you're talking about, the problem that you think, or that that they're facing in their industry, and that what their desired outcome is, but also what risks there are in terms of from you reaching out to them, but also for them as a business. And then the last one is when what is that trigger moment when you actually take that step and reach out, or what is going to be the trigger for them?
Because it might be that they've tasked somebody rather junior with doing a bunch of industry background research, so that can feed into the development of an RFP, and they have procurement rules, and you're not, that kind of thing. Or it may just be somebody keen who just likes the content that you're putting out there, and there's actually no purchasing intent at all. And so if you start kicking around, calling people, it might actually kind of distract or dilute your reputation. So I'm sure there's other people that would completely disagree with this kind of approach and be like, no, you got to get in there and figure out who it is. But I firmly do not sort of subscribe to that kind of an approach.
No, I think for the long-term professional business approach, that's not a sustainable way of doing things, and it is creepy, it is uncomfortable, and people don't like it. It is very important that you're delivering the right message at the right time, and that there's a clear next step that makes sense at that particular moment. Because if it doesn't, and if you're not sure where you are and you're not sure where they are, then it's just not going to go anywhere, and that's not worth it. And you may end up isolating them and driving them away from you, because they're going to go, oh, I can't go on their website anymore because I know I'm going to get bombarded by another load of phone calls and emails.
Yep. But at the same time, like, they're not the only ones that I can see through our analytics, and there's other kinds of organizations, and then we have other partnerships and ways that we show up, and so then we can compare notes. I can say to some of our other channel partners, like, hey, listen, I can see so and so is kind of looking around. Are you seeing the same activity? Did you meet with them? You know, because sometimes that happens. Like they're like, oh yeah, actually we were talking to them last week and we mentioned your name. Okay, well that's a signal to both of us that they're serious. Yeah. And you know, they didn't just kind of go whatever. They actually like, oh yeah, okay, I'll go look at that flywheel and see what they're all about. And then they do. And then that tells our partner, no, they're legitimately, you know, on the hunt here. And so that's another sort of form of listening and collaboration on how you can sort of personalize the experience.
Yeah. I mean, do you have like a sort of a signals map, you know, to track those signals when you sort of pick up on them or where they are in, you know, in your funnel and what actions you take then?
Yep.
Yeah, so talk me through that, because I got the impression that you did.
So, I mean, in this case, like I know quite specifically which companies are on our website, but you don't always know that, and you don't always know exactly what they're interested in and looking at. So then we also sort of organize our analytics into the type of content that the different visitors are consuming, and so then I can see, you know, are they interested in e-commerce? Are they interested in digital marketing? Are they interested in content management, CRM, that kind of thing? And there might be some overlap. Some people are looking for all those things all at once. But then I can use those segmented analytics to understand what I was talking about before, which is, well, that means I'm going to lean a little bit more into promoting or publishing a certain kind of content. Now, that's just sort of general. That's not quite the same signal analysis that you were talking about. The next layer beyond that goes even deeper. It's like not just like bucket my audience segments into the kind of intent that they have, but it's another layer of intent. It's like how much engagement are we getting from certain visitors, certain accounts within that same audience segment, within that same persona. So then we get into, well, actually, I can see this person has engaged 18 times, this person's only twice. And then it goes on to just a short list of like, well, these are the people I'm going to check every single day and be like, okay, any new action here, and I can see the journey, and I can see what kind of content and information. So it just kind of helps me narrow the focus. So I'm not looking through all of my analytics every day to be like, well, is there a new signal in here? It's like, okay, sometimes I look at general trends, and then I sort of look at the segment trends, and then I'm looking at individual trends when it's needed. So
I've had, I don't have it myself because I don't track those sort of things, because I don't tend to operate in that way. But I have seen with some of the clients that I work with that they have something very, very similar, and it's sort of typically a kind of a table that they have where you've got those different signals that you mentioned, at which stages they're at, and so on, and then they have that kind of mapped in a template of the, you know, well, typically when someone's doing these actions at this stage, then that can mean this, and therefore these are the next best actions for the team to do, either online or so on. And you know, this often is what leads into account-based marketing activities and content creation and so on. So I think that's incredibly valuable. I think there's, you know, if we come back to the sort of the main topic that we've been talking about, because we've been very stuck on, I suppose, these signals on the pre-sales, but I think these personalization matters throughout the sales process. It's not just from a prospect perspective, but it is very important throughout the process as well, that people still feel that there's a personalized element to it, and even more so, I think, once the account is won and is part of your business, that you maintain that personalization throughout, and that you don't just treat the prospective customers with lots of attention and forget about the ones who are already there, which is a common trait in a lot of big businesses here in the UK.
Well, I think that it's also sort of depends on the industry and the client that you serve, the type of service you provide. I mean, there's no avoiding a very personalized experience in the kind of work that we do. It's all sort of consultative based approaches and,
Yeah.
and customized things and weekly meetings and all that kind of stuff. But to your point, not everybody operates a business that way. And we even help deploy solutions that try to automate those kinds of experience and provide the best self-service capabilities that you possibly can. But I'll tell you also that as good an experience as you can deliver from a digital perspective or any sort of other automation, if you don't augment that with good client relationship management, you'll find that there's actually a dissatisfaction more often than not. So like legitimately statistically, the data shows that most of the time, those kinds of self-serve experiences are not seen as being as valuable as they are when they're complemented by the right kind of, and I say the right in air quotes, because you have to feel it and come up with this account plan to be like,
well, that's where the personalization comes in, isn't
right?
it?
Exactly. Yeah. Some clients may look on paper to be identical, but depending on the people, they're going to want a higher touch, monthly check-in, quarterly sit down, and others are going to be like, why are you talking to me? Like, we just renewed, call me in a year, right? So that's where the listening and the personalization comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to summarize what you're saying there, I mean, it's from your perspective, especially, it's, you know, it's kind of segment based, the personalization, but then that goes down a funnel almost into then being account based and then role based within those organizations, especially for the CMO and so on, who you typically deal with. You'll have a great bank of experience and stuff on that, but you'll also know that you need to involve the CFO, sometimes the CEO, and other departments as well. And so that personalization is incredibly important for the people who are going to be impacted by what you're doing. And then, of course, you've got the personalization that's based on where they are in that process, what they're doing, and also then you've got the life cycle based, as you said, you know, quarterly business reviews, things like that. Those are all very important points of personalization. So I think if anyone listening is is in any doubt that personalization is necessary, go back and have a listen to this, because there's some really good nuggets of information that apply to all businesses in all industries across the world. So whether you're a small business or a large business, you can do that. And also you can find out lots of other great information about how to run your business from tntimbits.com, where we talk about lots and lots and lots of different things. And you can connect with us and ask us any questions that you like.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Scott.